Before we went live about 5 minutes ago, I was telling Jared that I wasn't fancy enough to have music figured out. Those 5 minutes were painful for me, and I put myself on mute, and you couldn't hear this, Jared, but I had a dog snoring underneath me, so I just kicked her a little bit to see. So we'll get rolling. Good morning. Welcome to our kickoff session to navigating eQMS and Medtech today with Enzyme. I am Nicolle Cannon. Oh, sorry. I'm Nicolle Cannon, the founder and CEO of Cannon Quality Group. We started about 2010. We've had about over 200 clients since then to date, and we're most known for being the change in quality. We really prioritize in taking the fear out of quality and digesting regulations into real world sustainable solutions. Today we have Jared from Enzyme. I'll let him introduce himself.
Good morning, everybody. Look forward to speaking to you this morning. As Nicolle said, my name is Jared Seehafer. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Enzyme. Enzyme is a software and services company dedicated to serving life science. We were founded in 2017. And we were founded basically because my co-founder and I realized we sort of had the same problem, in that we had both lived by working at both sort of large and small medtech and biopharma companies, that the information systems that we were using were actually getting in the way more than helping. They were sort of adding friction, making it harder to work done, and making it harder to really ensure product quality and deliver a great experience to patients, which is what I think we're all in this for. And so we did this sort of classic Silicon Valley thing. We started a company and founded it going on 4 years now. We're a VC-backed company. And our sort of philosophical approach, we're going to talk about this a lot this morning, is really about how to bring you what we call compliance in fewer clicks. How to actually make the system work for you, as opposed to you fighting that system. We have a number of different customers in range of fields stretching now all around the world, from Australia, Singapore, EU, the Arabian Peninsula, US, Canada, Mexico, and from all product categories too, everything from class 1 through class 3 implantables on the device side, biopharma, both sort of the biotech and large biopharma, and on size, anything from like a 2-person university spin out all the way up to business units of Fortune 500 companies.
All right, today our journey is going to cover, first I want to thank you all for being on our maiden voyage. It's our first one of many to come, and I want to take you back a little bit around why we're here, or why I decided to do this. At CQG, we frequently get asked from founders, CTOs, or large organization people who are ready to get off of paper. And I don't know about you, Jared, but I really started seeing that in 2019. I called that the year of the eQMS. Finally, I say people were getting off of paper and ready to go more into the solutions. And 2020 really pushed us into that, of course. And I was going to put a series together. I reached out to Jared actually just for my team. We have so many solutions, we get so many questions. So I thought let's do a recurring series. And then I thought a little harder, and I thought, well, why stop with my team? Why not put this out there for all you founders, or in our network, or people who are looking to go from paper into an electronic solution? Have a safe environment where you can understand or hear a little bit about the eQMS, get some common questions addressed, learn why one solution might be a better solution for you, see a light demo, see what the providers are going to be looking to add to their solution, and then have a chance to have some questions. So that's what we're going to do today. Again, super thankful, Jared, for you being the first one here on the kickoff. Before I hand it off to Jared, I want to let you guys know that I am going to put some poll questions in the meeting. So please go in and answer. So it helps us understand who's in the room and where you are, and then we'll go through them as we go through the conversation today. I will hand it off to Jared, and I will drop the poll once he gets rolling.
Right here, just a kind of an intro. We know there's a lot of solutions out there, and part of the thing, and we were really excited when Nicolle brought this up. Part of the reason that we're having this series is really to give all of you in industry a chance to understand what are the different vendors' perspectives, how do we see ourselves, what are we kind of just trying to imbue in our products, who do we see as a good fit for our product offering versus not, etc. So we're going to spend some time here at the outset just talking a little bit about that, just giving you a very high-level overview of Enzyme. We'll do a hop into the product and then return to Q&A and poll questions here at the end of the session. So on the question of, well, why pick us as opposed to all the other options out there? And I'm sure if you are, looking, you will agree with me. There's a kind of a multitude of choice, almost a paradox of choice. We really see ourselves as doing kind of three specific things here that we've laid out. The first is that we started this company to try and rethink this process from the 21st century. eQMS really, if you look, even just 10, 15 years ago, was e-document management. And a lot of systems still sort of are designed around that premise. It's about putting things in documents, routing documents. It's kind of document control. It used to be in file cabinets, then it was on file servers, and now it's in the cloud. And that certainly has the advantage of simplicity. Also has a lot of disadvantages as well. As you have your data kind of encapsulated inside of this thing we call a document that we're all used to because that's what we used to write things on from days of typewriters. It also sort of traps your data, makes it harder to parse, harder to reuse, harder to make links and traceability with things, and then also harder to integrate with other tools. You'll see that a lot as I go on here for the next few minutes. One of the things that we really pride ourselves on is being part of your tool chain as a company and not basically creating this walled garden over here called eQMS that I have some sort of cumbersome import-export process to get data into and out of, but it doesn't really sync with anything I'm doing. And
I'm having flashbacks, Jared.
Yeah, again, like we started this because I couldn't believe, working inside Medtronic that we had all these great tools for development. And then there was this thing over here that managed all of our documentation, and never the twain shall meet. Right. And so being the junior engineer on the team, I'm spending time copying and pasting and copying and pasting, copying and pasting. And I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, this is what I went to graduate school in engineering to do. I'm gonna go be a medical device engineer. And instead I'm copying and pasting from a requirements system to a Word template so we can file it. So our theory inside of Enzyme is, hey, let's rethink this. And so that's not only true from how we store data, but it's also true from the perspective of we've built a platform that's ours. It was sort of designed for this purpose. We're not making use of anything else. There are certainly advantages to making use of kind of like a general purpose data management system, which we'll talk about at the end about why would you maybe not want to choose us, because we think there are perfectly valid reasons not to. But the flip side of that is that we really get to make it fit for a purpose. And you'll see kind of some examples of that moving on. The second of these three pillars of why choose us is we have tried to build this thing for the non-QA/RA expert out of the gate, having all the features that a QA/RA person is going to want, but at the same time, not something that's going to force you to be the bottleneck. We've heard that a lot from our customers of, especially as your company starts scaling, everyone makes you, if you're the quality professional, into the dot control gopher. Everything's going to route through. I don't want to use this. I don't understand how to use it. Hey, Jared, can you just do this for me? Here, I'm just going to email. Like, can you put it in the system? Like, because I got other stuff to do. Obviously, no one wants to be that bottleneck. It also means you're not really realizing the value out of the system. And so one of the things that we've tried to do is make ours very easy to use, so that you can actually say, no, you've been trained on it. I was there. You can go use it. It's fine. With the Enzyme product. And then the last of those three pillars is we like to think of ourselves as lean but scalable. We built it to, again, work all the way down to the two-person university spin out. And so built into this system are a lot of what we hope are intelligent defaults driven by standards, driven by experience. But As you scale, obviously, you're going to have a more custom process to you. And so we allow you to sort of go into the, the settings dashboard and change things around as you see fit. So just getting into some core functionality before we go see the app. First, just kind of on a system-wide basis, of course, it's part of compliant for e-signatures and records. That's kind of table stakes for this product category. There's a flexible role-based permissions model, so you can define people into certain roles and then allow them to have access to different parts of data inside the system. There's a system-wide search functionality. And one of the things that we think is particularly distinctive of our system is that we've written a suite of SOPs to ride alongside of that. Of course, it works with other SOPs. If you've got Nicole's team here writing SOPs, they do a great job. It's not going to be a problem there. But if you're starting from scratch and you have a completely new QMS, that can be a great time saver because you don't have to worry about one, if am I writing my SOPs correctly, and two, just making sure they're compatible with whatever tool you're using. Another thing that's we think a pretty cool and distinctive feature of our product is that we didn't build it to be multi-tenant. Now, side nerd note, forgive me. There's this distinction in sort of software applications in the cloud between what we call single tenant and multi-tenant. And basically, this just means how many instances of the product are there in the cloud? Is there one that's shared across all customers, or are there multiple shared that are kind of unique to you? Obviously, it's a lot simpler to administer a system where there's just one. I'm just changing it. But there's some security downsides, of course. Like you have to make sure, really sure from a coding and data integrity that you make sure people see the right things. And then also there's a lack of flexibility around what version of the software is running where, because again, there's just one instance of it. So Enzyme is designed as a single tenant architecture. Every customer who is an Enzyme customer has their own instance of Enzyme with no data sharing between any of them. By design, there is inherent security in this model because there isn't sort of customer A and customer B data all kind of commingled, and hopefully your vendor has figured out and made sure that customer A sees customer A stuff and customer B sees customer B stuff. In our system, customer A and customer B might as well be on different sides of the country where the data is shared. There's no crosstalk or anything like that. We utilize the Amazon Web Services cloud for this. AWS, kind of the biggest cloud provider in the world, has a lot of inherent benefits in data security, reliability, and scalability. By default, everyone's data is backed up in multiple data centers. The data centers are physically isolated. We like to say, because customers always ask, hey, what's going to happen with all my valuable data? I'm basically giving you the keys to my kingdom. The way we put it is, if the internet goes down, well, there's a trouble. But if the internet goes down, like literally the whole internet, we probably have bigger problems to worry about. And in the case that you really want to be 100% super sure, we getting a little bit of feedback, Nicole. I don't know if you are.
No, I was going to ask you a question though, since I have you paused for a moment.
No, go ahead.
Do you find that most buyers get this nuance that to know about the single tenant? Do you think that there's some providers out there that don't have that offering and they aren't aware to think about that?
I think most buyers at sort of a large, like if you're talking about a buyer of a team that's say greater than 200, 250, everyone's pretty much aware of it, and below that, maybe not so much. Because if the larger the company is, the more likely they have dedicated IT and InfoSec resources, and they always ask because it gets into their sort of qualification of you. And it also enables things like, say, do we want to be on a different release cadence or cycle than some other customers because we have a more complicated validation process than some of your other clients might have. So yes and no, like it depends on I think how big the organization is that we get that question. And so lastly, just here on the architecture piece, of course, again, we hope table stakes for this kind of product. All your data is always encrypted, both, what we say at rest when it's stored in the cloud, and then also in transit as it's going back and forth between the web browser and the server in the cloud. For training and support, we have what we think is an industry-leading onboarding process. Generally, we aim to have everyone onboarded within 45 days. If you have a large organization, we can of course scale that out. A larger company often, needs maybe a quarter to get everything done, but we have a pretty battle-tested process of sequencing different levels of training to different types of users at different times, coupled with data migration. We also have the option of having dedicated support representatives available, and then we also have in-app chats for sort of at the ready support. If your company doesn't like that so much, we can, of course, disable that. Now, I said at the outset, integration is one of the things that I think we do something that is really special and to my knowledge, unique within the industry in the just sort of the breadth of what is possible. So first, integration with sort of your existing architecture. That's sort of one option. Hey, do I want to release just doc control, or just doc control and training, or just doc control, training, and design control? Or do I want to do the whole full suite, or do I want to sequence those? Enzyme's based on a modular architecture allows us to do that really easily. The second is integration with your sort of existing tool chain. So this is just a sampling you see down here of integrations that we've got. Things on sort of the notification side for Slack, Salesforce, and Zendesk for getting kind of customer feedback and complaints routed into the system. GitHub on Jira for sort of software, Drive for file storage and document storage. And there are a number of additional ones that we've got, and we also have an API that we are constantly evolving if it's not present right now. Why do this? Well, again, we're trying to get rid of the sort of copy and paste land. We think that eQMS should be definitely, of course, has to be your system of record, but in the 21st century, 2021, you ought to be able to have this data syncing automatically. Just like, it's sort of the standard right now for enterprise software to have this kind of automation and integration between different systems. We think that should be no different on the eQMS side.
With other departments. I mean, I love that you get a chance to, people can work where they work. And that's one of Salesforce is always one of my big ones when I see an eQMS that works with Salesforce. The sales team is always one of the hardest ones in quality and regulatory to wrangle. And I don't really want to wrangle them. I want them to sell. And I want to figure out how to get where they are, but they get their complaints, right? So that's where I'm going to get my complaint action. So I always find that it's great that you're working where the departments are, because it goes back to that first moment we talked about, which is, you don't have this quality person who's running the system, right? You have people engaged and interactive.
Absolutely, yeah. We have this distinction internally that we like to talk about between systems of work and systems of record, and you want them to be closely coupled. But your system of work can sometimes be a little messy, and that's okay. And it's going to have stuff that actually isn't properly in the quality system. And we should, again, be fine with that. You just need to make sure that it's possible where it is relevant for that data to sort of easily be migrated and keep in sync, basically, so that we can let the sales team go do a bunch of stuff that doesn't need to be in the QMS, or we can let the sort of the software developers, if you're making software, there's going to be all kinds of stuff in your Jira board you're not going to ever want in your quality system. So having not only that ability to integrate, but also have strong filters, so we can basically say yes in quality system, no, not in quality system, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, is really key.
Team members really uncomfortable, right? Like, oh wait, we're gonna have to control this.
We get that a lot. Someone hears Jira integration and they go, "Oh my God, is this gonna show up in my audit? Like, someone's profanity-laden screed about some bug, is this going to show up? I'm not going to notice it because we're doing so much work, and then the auditor asks me for some traceability chain, and I'm doing one of these things during the audit, trying to keep straight face. We get that question a lot. Trust me, there are ways of making sure that that does not happen. Okay, Nicolle sort of teased at the outset just a little bit of where we're going with the product, and then we're going to hop to the product itself. So some things that are in roadmap for this year, we're working on additional integrations with some test case management solutions. A bill of materials module is going to launch later this year. Particularly, we hear this a lot around customer customization of the system. There's some built in. We're adding a lot more. I would say if there's one thing that's definitely coming this year, it's going to be that. And we could talk a little bit about that in Q&A if you're interested. And then, of course, customer feedback. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is being very customer responsive. All Enzyme customers have the opportunity to provide us, and we're always soliciting these kinds of enhancement requests, and fitting them in where we can in terms of the roadmap. Okay, enough talking. Let's hop to the demo. I'm gonna go ahead, share. All right, hopefully, yeah, it looks like everyone can see my screen. Very good. Okay, you're looking at the Enzyme system, one of our demo servers right now. The inside of the Enzyme system, we have the various modules. You're looking at the dashboard currently. So the dashboard shows me, hey, what do I have to do? What does the company have to do if I have that particular permission? And what are things, more specifically? Give me direct access to any change requests, any notifications, any training assignments that might need my attention. Also in the dashboard, you'll find a sort of one-stop shop to any of the exports that you've requested, the ability to generate metrics on various variables and kind of across various modules in the system for use in management review. And then your audit trail, where you can see data if you have the correct permission. We're looking at kind of an admin view right now for what has happened inside the system. Of course, I was mentioning sort of search. This is where you're going to get, access to the universal search system. So if I'm looking for, say, my management review SOP, I can just type in management. Click that, boom, it's taking me right to the document control system. Heading back to the dashboard really quickly. The different modules in the Enzyme system are accessible up here at the top. Design and risk under product. Under process, we have document control, approvals, training, and suppliers. Under improvements, we've got audits, complaints, NC, and CAPA. On the upper right-hand corner here, we've got effectively any of the settings that you might need access to, where, say, you're customizing your permissions, your approval matrix. How do I want this module to interact? As I mentioned earlier, we've got a number of different integrations. Those are all accessible and set up here in the integrations tab.
Specific around Jira and test cases. Do you want to
Sure.
talk about that now?
Let's do it.
Okay. So are you integrated with the Jira service stats, or whatever they're calling it, is what the question is?
I didn't catch that. It was a little bit of static, Nicolle.
Oh, sorry. The Jira service stats, is that what you're integrated with?
That and Jira software and Jira management, all under the hood, it's kind of the same thing from an API perspective. Okay, and they're asking, what does Jira integration mean on the development side? Is there linkage from the requirement to the story in Jira? Can you report on the completion of Jira stories that are linked to requirements? Great question. Yes, it's exactly as you thought here, where you've got a linkage between Jira issues and your design control data. So here, you see here, I'm looking at a particular requirement. We just hopped the design control module to answer this question. I'll step back to show you that in just a moment. The design control module allows you effectively to handle what we call design elements. So that's going to be requirements of whatever level scope, your design outputs, your tests, your verifications and validations. You can handle those all independently, which means you can route them independently if you want. You can also link them to other sort of pieces of data out there in any of these software systems that we link to. So in this case, I've got this particular requirement, and there's some sort of description and some acceptance criteria, and this is linked to our Jira board. And as I change things in Jira, because I've made this linkage between Enzyme and Jira, the Enzyme system will then update. And as Enzyme goes out of sync with Jira, if you change something quickly in Enzyme, Enzyme updates Jira. There's this crosstalk back and forth between both systems. So if I want to say, let's say we're going to go add from Google Auth 2 and Okta and SAML and GitHub Auth and let's pick something else. Let's say Active Directory 2. We don't have Active Directory yet, but we might add it later this year. So as I add things in Enzyme, you note that they pop up in, add things in Jira, excuse me, they pop up in Enzyme, and they pop up in a very specific way. It creates new drafts inside of the system. And so I can decide, what do I want to do with that sort of draft? Do I want to accept it? Do I want to reject it? Do I want to basically sort of send it out for some sort of change control action, etc.? What this does basically is it allows me to, again, system work, system of record, all kinds of things are changing in Jira all the time. You can use Enzyme as kind of this gate to say, this is a correct update, this is an incorrect update. Hope that answers the person's question. In the interest of time, because we are kind of coming up on time, I'm gonna hop just to another couple of other features, and then we'll sort of start talking about the poll questions. So as I was saying, the design control module, one of the great features is the ability to basically deal with these design elements kind of independently. That does a couple of things. One, integration. Two, makes traceability really easy, because I can create my trace matrix and visualize it inside the system, as opposed to trying to make sense of this Excel spreadsheet that's constantly changing and never seems to be quite right. On the other modules, some of the distinct features that we have, training system. The training system allows you to train over both control documentation and what we call training tasks, any training, live training, courses, anything that's kind of outside the eQMS. They are governed by these curricula. You basically define how do I want to map my roles to my training items, and then the system basically just sends out training assignments. You manage it here in the training matrix. So I can just see, like, hey, who's over, what's overdue? Hey, is the sales team, how's the sales team doing in terms of, its training performance? Do I want to look at by a person, etc.? You can also set it up so that managers will able to see this matrix scope to their team. So again, as the QA person, doesn't all fall on you, or if you have a training manager, doesn't all fall on them as well. And I think I just want to quick tour, and then we'll kind of hop back to any sort of poll questions or Q&A. Modules that we've got: an audits module for internal, external supplier audits; complaints, walking through a whole complaint workflow, including reportability, analysis, and investigation; non-conformances over your both product and process NCs. How's it going to be linked? Where is it coming from? What action am I taking? Linking those back. And then a CAPA system. We have tried to make the world's easiest CAPA system. You can tell us if you believe that, but as someone who was part of many CAPA teams and hated them, I find it fairly easy to use. We hope you think so too. And I think I'm gonna close up, and we'll head back to some of the Q&A right now. Oh, great, okay. So we have the first poll question. Nicolle, you wanna take that, the ideal to take the eQMS plunge?
Yes, we have about 70%, I believe, from the start is when you do it. We have one that once you have your quality system procedures, and a couple that follow the after design freeze moment.
So our 2 cents on this is we will generally do with the from the start thing, at least some portion of an eQMS. So again, you can release Enzyme in this modular fashion. We don't think there's any reason not to have electronic document control and electronic training from day one. You're just adding more work for yourself not to do that. Now, it does. So I think there is a fair open question around, do we want to have the whole suite of stuff? Of course, it doesn't make sense to have complaints before you have any product in either clinical trials or in production. So not that, of course, but do I want to have maybe the full design control module, or do I want to just start with documentation? Those are open questions. We think there's fair answers depending on what your situation is. But definitely, we think at least get your document management training system. Don't do file cabinets. It's 2021. It's time to move on. And I think the next question is around the platform evaluation.
So we have it's kind of split 30-30-30 for people in the audience. It's customization, integration, and then it comes with a compliant quality system, which is an interesting thing that you and I can dig into with that. So looks like it's divided equally on that one.
Procedures?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Compliant quality system procedures.
Yeah. Editorial note: we would never tell you our procedures are going to make you compliant. They're a step, certainly, but the implementation of those procedures is definitely something that needs to take place.
Yeah, it's an interesting nuance, and Jared and I have talked about it a bit. That we realized that some individuals are being sold the idea that in order to have a compliant quality system, as long as you have an eQMS and you have SOPs, you're compliant. And it's really in the execution of the procedures, and that's what Jared's procedures are great. And it's still always going to be as good as the user, right? The user has to follow the procedures, and you have to know what you can tweak in them too, right? Just like same with your system, right? I'm not going to soapbox.
100% agree with everything there. So our view of this basically is sort of threefold. So, like I said, we hear customizability a lot. We have been working on that. There's a lot more in the system that's customizable than it was the year before, and then at the end of this year, it's going to be far, far greater. But there is this trade-off between sort of an ease of use and customizability type question that is true just generally in software design writ large. You can see this in sort of something that everyone might know. There's the sort of the Apple versus the non-Apple of things. So there's Mac versus Windows, there's iOS versus Android. And the Apple design philosophy is largely, we're going to make some decisions for you because we think it makes for better product. And you can't sort of change every single solitary thing that you might want to. Whereas the converse of that on the Android and the Windows side is it's much more flexible, where you could completely reconfigure something from the ground up. We think that trade-off sort of persists also in eQMS, and striking the right balance is something we think a lot about. Because if you have something that is completely customizable, yeah, you might be able to do it. Can make it do anything you want to after spending either tens of thousands of dollars or hiring somebody who becomes the expert to manage it, and then you kind of fall into that trap of no one really knows how to use the system, so you end up having about a handful of people that actually do. So that is something that we think a lot about. Now, there might be some good reasons that you want or need to have something that is ultra customizable. And there's a particular process and workflow you need to support. So that's something to consider. The other sort of trade-off is around integration. Is integration important to you or not? Do you intend to just have all data entry happening in the system? There are good reasons for that. Do you intend for this to talk to either internal systems or external systems that aren't the eQMS? And then there's a question around sort of platform that's related to this ease of use versus customizability. A generic application platform is generally going to be more customizable, but there are some downsides there. Other questions around platform evaluation that we think are relevant. Is this beneficial to have an all-in-one solution? We generally think so, but if you have, say, existing complaint management systems, that's not in scope. You're going to keep your complaint management system. You got TrackWise, you're living with TrackWise, you're not changing TrackWise. That's it. Conversation over. Maybe having an all-in-one solution doesn't matter as much. Are you starting fresh, or are you changing systems? What kind of data needs to be migrated? Are there deployment or other InfoSec considerations? Again, we said at the outset, this is where single tenant versus multi-tenant might matter to you. And then lastly, is there on the need to sort of integrate this rollout with some other related system you're rolling out at the same time, PLM, PVM, that kind of thing. And I think we're on to the last poll question, Nicolle.
Successful implementation, and we're about 40% of the cross-department buy-in, another 40 quality system educated support, and then one that believes that the team has to have time available to learn the system.
Yeah, we would generally agree with all of those. I think the number one thing that we have found is the delta between successful implementation versus not is there buy-in across the team, both from a cross-functional perspective and then also from a managerial perspective. I think both of those are really critically important because it's kind of carrot and stick. Cross-functional buy-in is the carrot, the manager buy-in is the stick, basically. If you've got, you're driving this from the quality department, and your customer success or support teams have said that they're going to get trained on how to go through the new complaint workflow, and they're not showing up to trainings, and their manager is saying they're swamped, they're working 10 hours a day. I'm not going to have time for quality. I'm sorry. Frankly, having some senior buy-in to basically say, no, you're going to go find the time because the company has decided this is important. We have found to be an important part of this. That relates to that, have a team available for training, have data needed for migration, and understanding how your eQMS rollout might impact any sort of major QMS changes. Do you need procedure changes? Are you rolling out different procedures? Do we need to train people in different procedures? Is this going to govern how we're working with our quality system in any way because we're rolling out this eQMS? We think that's important. A last kind of just note I would say on this topic is don't be afraid to basically tell your vendor what they need to do to help you. We sometimes get like, well, what do you think we should do? And we can give you our 2 cents, of course, but every company is different. And it's helpful when someone comes in and says like, okay, I need you to do this, that, and the other. This is the kind of political consideration over here. This person, we can only fit them in Monday morning, 8 to 9. So can you make that happen? All of these sort of things, we get it. Like this is not our first rodeo. We've done this many, many times. And we are biased for making sure you successfully implement and quickly and actually start to realize the value of what you purchased. So basically, like your success is their success. So don't be afraid to ask. And yeah, I think we're
I think we've hit most of these answers. One question is, how would you advise a small company with an established QMS paper-based system on switching to electronic? like really established, very small paper-based company. I happen to know this person.
So
what should they consider?
I guess I would ask why. So first, I just like kind of understand, well, clearly I agree with you, you should move to electronic, but what's your reasoning for wanting to achieve that? Like, I want to understand what's motivating it internally, and where are the sort of stumbling blocks to doing this. So as you're evaluating, what I would do is I would make sure the most Luddite, tech-phobic person in the company is involved in the evaluation process, and make sure that person knows how, and he has some sort of input in terms of what am I picking, basically. Because if you can get, a grumbling acknowledgement that it's not so bad from that person, you're for whatever you end up choosing, your life's gonna be a lot easier. The second thing is that if you've got a really established paper quality system, I would not go whole hog on eQMS. I would start with electronic document control, maybe electronic document control and training. Start there. Roll that out first. I think you're going to see the value of having things in an electronic system, writ large as just a general concept. And then maybe 6 months down the line, reevaluate it and say, do we want to sort of take the step for, further implementation, more specific modules, as opposed to everything being forms inside document control. And it's totally okay if you just stick with document control. Like we think like doc control, if you're on a paper-based system, you go to doc control and training, you're going to see a lot of value there, and you might just never move beyond that. That's totally fine. So yeah, make sure
that's going to be game changer enough, right?
Exactly. So start iteratively, and then make sure that the person who's the most recalcitrant is involved in some way in the evaluation. So
what have you found are the biggest challenges that you come across with eQMS implementation?
Process where, again, there's lack of buy-in, you have a hard time with data, et cetera. We kind of covered that. We think a really critical period is that kind of first 1 to 2 quarters after you've said, like, we've gone live. How is that going? Are you sticking with the system? Are you helping kind of onboard new people join the company? Are they being onboarded properly? Generally, one of the ways that we see kind of a failure mode in eQMS implementation is, if it's not an onboarding, it is rapid growth in the company right after implementation, to the point where, like, the person who ran the implementation process might have been promoted 3 times and isn't even touching eQMS anymore, because she went from quality systems manager to director of quality and has a whole team of 4 people under her. And she didn't have time for this. She's got 16,000 other things to be doing. It's someone else's job now. And then the things can kind of fall by the wayside, or are people probably doing it? You kind of create this shadow quality system to the extent that you have one over here that gets managed, that people just kind of figured it out. That's something that can happen. The way around that that we find is to make sure that whoever is going to be the key point. We always know, like, who our liaison is with each account. If that person is changing, just let your provider know and say, I'm moving on. It's going to be so and so now. And a good provider, good vendor is going to, their customer success team is going to get on the horn and say, great, welcome. What do I need to do to make sure you're trained if you're new to the company? And what's going on? Are there a lot of people who need to do, your training for? How can we help, et cetera? So just make sure there's a constant point of contact that is in charge of this, I think, is one way to help that a lot.
I like that you've mentioned that a couple of times, because I think that not all providers do provide that high touch service, and I don't know the best way to help people flesh that out, because I think a lot of providers say they do. And I don't know, I don't know that that's something we can answer, but it's something that I'm kind of passionate about as I watch people buy into these systems. It is really important to have a partner in it on the eQMS side, and if they aren't going to stay with you and help you, so it's good to hear you saying these things, because I think that's how we'll know that Enzyme will have that as an option. Another question we have is, I'm going to go back up to another technical one, the JIRA questions. The next question this person had was for test case management. Do you have any solution internally or any current integrations? One, what is the mechanism for end-to-end traceability from the requirement through the test case? Two, and how do you support automated test execution reporting results? And I'm happy to answer those. I just wanted to get them all to you.
Okay. I'll try to. Each of these could be like 30 minutes, so I will have to simplify. For whoever asked this, if you reach out to me, Jared, Jared at enzyme.com. Again, Jared at enzyme.com. We can go in further detail. Test case management. So we currently integrate with anything that is going to sync with JIRA, and a lot of those tools do. We also have a dedicated integration to this thing called Zephyr. We are working on one with a product called X-Ray that will it's not live yet, but it will launch sometime in the second quarter. You can also use the internal system in Enzyme, design control, to manage that. End-to-end traceability from requirement through test case. We kind of really glanced over it, but there's an interface for basically linking up the traceability links and then doing a trace matrix check to make sure that all your tracing is correct. That can be entered directly in the UI or inferred from any system that we integrate with, the most common use case being JIRA and some test case management system that links to JIRA, where you have linked issues inside JIRA, and then those linkages then make their way into Enzyme. As far as supporting automated text execution reporting results, we have integrations with Jenkins, Travis, and Circle, where basically you can have either kind of push or pull results for some automated test suite to go directly into the design control module. And again, it looks like Chad, just feel free to reach out to me over email. We can talk about this in more detail.
Yeah, I got put your email in there for him. Is this a good fit for an extremely low-risk software-only product?
Well, when you say extremely low risk, does that mean non-medical device, basically, I guess is the question that I have in mind. I would guess my answer to that, if you have a need to be under a QMS of some rigor, i.e. compliant with either 9001, 1345, or an equivalent, that's going to be true for pretty much most everyone doing software for medical purposes in Europe after May, because we're making that FDR switchover, we think. That's going to mean you're going to have some sort of ongoing audit. Right? So I guess the answer to my question there, Christian, does your company need to have a QMS of some sophistication and rigor, regardless of what the standard is, regardless of the reason why?
It's a class 1 medical device.
Yeah, and that again, that sort of, I would say, well, you are eventually going to get inspected in the United States, and in Europe, you might be upregulated in about 2 months. In which case, I would advise in both cases, yeah, it would be a good fit.
How often do you find, and this is going to sound self-serving, but do you find that the eQMS rollout is accompanied by need for some consulting support, whether it's your team or, and I think it goes back to like needing somebody who knows the quality part of it?
80% of the time. It's very often. Now, it might not be on the quality side. So we often will run into people where they might have internal quality support in the form of some employee or employees, but there's a greater kind of process improvement type thing. We see this a lot in our enterprise customers where really they're switching tools as part of some corporate initiative that's like 12 levels above the tool question. And so there's consulting in that sense. For smaller companies, oftentimes there is a need. It can be on the quality side, can be on the regulatory side, can be on both. But we sometimes run into folks who they've got quality support internally, but they need RA support. That would be one example.
And what about the software side? Meaning like software development side. So I know you serve a lot of SMBs.
Yeah, we occasionally run into that, particularly where it's a growing trend. Actually, we've seen a lot in the last year where you have teams that are more that have these grand ambitions, need assistance actually just developing the software in this fashion, and that's something we can help with as well. Where software program management, software design assurance is something that we know quite a bit about and can assist with.
Right. One question about your QMS procedures. How often are they updated to align with ISO and FDA, or what are they based on?
Great question. It's sort of an ongoing process. We have resources internally that own this, and so are updating it. I would say releases of new procedures are, we're generally, I think on average, doing them twice a year, where we might update something either for, and of course we maintain the version, so you might not be on version 2 and then we're on version 4, and then we'll give you the delta and you can decide what to do with it, etc. But it's an ongoing process here internally.
What are your thoughts on the stage and phase of the company milestones or like triggers when you think it's best for them? I mean, I guess you said earlier from the beginning. Is there?
I would say, again, doc control and training, the second you're thinking about QMS development, I would roll that out. In terms of milestones and then it might make sense to do, design control as well, do risk as well, do all your pre-market stuff. And then there's the kind of the objective one where it's just basically, do I need post-market QMS or not, based on where I am? So there's usually a transition phase between I'm just on kind of the pre-market side to now I'm pre-market and post-market, I'll make that. Other kind of milestones that we run into, I'm starting V&V or I'm starting my first in-human trial. It's generally a place where people really start thinking seriously about design control. Like, I had some requirements before, but now I need to kind of, like big boy version of design control.
Yeah. But the downside, I don't know about you, that because I'm definitely one for, I think I differ a little bit from you in the sense of like, I want them to have a frozen, concept at least usually, because I don't want them to spend a lot of money thinking about things.
Right.
But if they wait until that B&B, the problem is now you have a company, you have a product, you're trying to get to market, you want everybody, gas pedaling to that, and you're going to try and integrate into a quality system in an electronic solution. The leaders need to understand that it's gonna take resources and it's gonna take time. And
yeah, I might have been giving you a misimpression. I don't suggest that as a milestone. It's a milestone we see.
Yeah, totally.
Like the earlier you do this process, the better generally around, so for instance, if you decide at the outset, I just want doc control and training, generally we say you should probably just stick with that until you get a product on the market, go through a process. Mm-hmm. And then as you think about commercialization, and you probably realize, oh God, that was so painful managing all these documents back way. Can we do something different? That's a good time to say, oh, let's evaluate that for like Gen 2 or a line extension or a completely new product, etc. But in terms of like when we see people coming to us, it's generally kind of a oh no type of moment where it's they're starting V&V and basically what's going to happen is you're going to end up not only paying for eQMS, you're going to be paying some consulting agency a lot of money to remediate an existing product. Much better to start from scratch.
Right. Okay, I think we'll have one more question as we're winding down, and this is for your class 1 medical device. What function should they start with? We have finished product with design tools, but nothing else on quality procedures.
Ooh, what function should we start with? Well, you're going to have to go through the sequence of first adopting procedures, training to them, and then remediating everything you've done to those procedures if you're adopting them. So in terms of a function, like if you don't have a product, if you have a product, I guess if you have a finished product on market, and you're class 1, this is bad. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think I fully understand your question, Christian. Like you have finished product with design tools. That part I don't.
I mean, let's assume it's pre-market, because if it's post-market, you should have had a quality system in place. If it's pre-market still, there's going to be this kind of iterative loop between, I would say, dot control, training, design, and risk, and you're going to kind of go like this until you get everything remediated. So I would focus there. Suppliers is, a software product, pretty straightforward, so that I wouldn't spend too much time there. And if it's pre-market, you're not really, and it's low risk, you're probably not thinking too much about complaints and CAPA, etc. So dot control, training, design, risk, there's going to be some cycles to get up to speed.
I feel like we have the same tagline on that one for sure. I think those are the key places to start. I always think, once you get through dot control, design and risk, where you spend. I want to thank everyone for coming, and then Jared, I want to thank you, of course, again for being our first maiden voyage. We have a free gift for you on the right of the slide, where you can have our complimentary eQMS, where we looked at a bunch of different vendors and we put that out for this year. And then on the other side, I just want to let you guys all know, for our startups, we have a compliance essentials solution that we're putting out there. The nuance that we're doing is we found a lot of startups and a lot of new companies need that set of procedures, need somewhere to start. And we believe that you also need some help with that. And what we do is we have a coaching session that goes with our compliance essentials. We run into a lot of companies that they go buy a package of documents and then they don't know what to do with them. So we believe that to make you most successful, kind of aligned with what Jared was saying with an eQMS solution, you need help. You need to know what you can change, when you need to lift what up. So with our compliance essentials, we also have coaching calls that go with it. Again, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jared. Any other questions that weren't answered, we'll try and get you connected so that you can have that, and everyone will get a copy of these slides. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.